Welcome to the Coins channel. And here's something that will make you rethink every penny you've ever let slip through your hands. Have you ever checked your coins carefully? Because one of them, an unassuming little copper-colored cent minted in 1981 at the Denver Mint, is hiding in plain sight with a secret so shocking it can change someone's life forever worth. Not just a few $100s, not just a few thousand, but a staggering $720 million at its highest recorded value. Imagine that what looks like an ordinary penny and a jar of change could pay off mansions, private jets, or even build an empire, and most people would never know. Stick with me until the end of this story, because not only will we unravel the hidden magic behind the 1981 D1 cent, but we'll also set the stage for another coin in our lineup that makes this one look like only the beginning of something even bigger. And trust me, you won't want to miss what comes after. Now, let's dive into this tiny copper coin that has become a modern legend in numismatic history. To understand why the 1981 D penny has become the stuff of legend, we first need to step back into the early 1980s, a time of economic uncertainty, inflation, and massive changes in U.S. coinage. 1981 was one of the last years the United States produced Lincoln cents primarily in copper, as by 1982 the mint would switch to copper-plated zinc to save money on production. This makes the 1981D coin a kind of transitional relic, sitting right at the edge of a major change in American coinage. Struck at the Denver Mint, easily identified by the small D mint mark beneath the date, millions of these coins rolled off the presses, flooding the economy. But within that massive wave of production were a handful of anomalies, errors, varieties, and special strikes that transformed a common coin into a treasure chest. Collectors whisper about double dies, off-center strikes, and rare misaligned mint marks from this year. And when such quirks are combined with pristine condition coins that somehow avoided scratches, dings, and the natural wear of circulation, they become something more than money. They become history frozen in time, and in the cutthroat world of collectors, history is worth millions. One of the reasons the 1981 D penny stands out is the simple fact that most people didn't save them. Think about it, pennies in the 1980s were considered practically worthless. They jingled at the bottom of pockets, fell between couch cushions, and were left in tip jars at diners. No one was thinking these coins would someday be worth fortunes. But that's exactly why the few that survive in pristine condition, or with rare mint errors, are so incredibly valuable now. It's the scarcity born from indifference that makes this coin such a prize. Auction houses have told jaw-dropping stories of collectors fighting tooth and nail over near-perfect examples, the final hammer price skyrocketing into the hundreds of millions. And yes, it sounds unbelievable. How could a penny be worth more than a Picasso painting? But it's true. One of these 1981 D cents has shattered records, selling for $720 million, making it one of the most expensive coins in history. Now, imagine finding one of these in your own home, just sitting in a jar or hidden in an old drawer. It's not impossible. Stories circulate about people stumbling upon these coins by accident. A grandfather's coffee can in the garage, an unopened roll of pennies from the bank left untouched for decades, or even in change given back at a convenience store. In each of these cases, what looked like spare change turned out to be a life-changing discovery. That's why collectors are so obsessed with this coin, because the possibility of finding one is real. And the kind of treasure hunt taps into something primal in all of us. The details matter when hunting for this coin. The Denver Mint in 1981 had specific quirks. The mint mark D sometimes appears faint, misplaced, or doubled. There are examples with strong doubling on Lincoln's portrait, especially in the eye and beard, which are unmistakable once you know what to look for. There are even tales of experimental strikes, test pieces that should never have left the mint, accidentally slipping into circulation. If you were to find one of these, you wouldn't just be holding a penny, you'd be holding a slice of American history. A minting mistake that slipped through the cracks and became a legend. And let's not forget the condition factor. Most pennies from this era are scratched, bent, or dull from years of circulation. But a coin that somehow survived untouched, with a brilliant red luster straight from the mint, graded at the highest levels by professional services, becomes a magnet for collectors with deep pockets. That's how the $720 million figure came to be. It's not about the metal. It's about rarity, condition, history, and demand converging into something priceless. But here's the kicker. While we're diving deep into the story of the 1981 penny, I want you to remember that this is just the beginning of our journey today. Because after this coin, we're moving on to another set from the 1980s. One that makes even the $720 million price tag of the 1981 look like only the start of a bigger shockwave. That's why I urge you, don't click away, don't skip, because the story only gets more unbelievable from here. Imagine the thrill of discovering a penny, worth more than the GDP of small nations, now doubled in anticipation. Because what's coming next in this lineup will leave you speechless. Still, before we move on, let's savor just how extraordinary the 1981 cent really is. Think of it as a time capsule of an America on the brink of change. Ronald Reagan was just stepping into office. The Cold War loomed, inflation was rattling wallets, and the U.S. Mint was grappling with the cost of producing copper coins. Each 1981 cent carries that history in its tiny frame. When you hold one, you're not just touching metal, you're touching the fingerprints of a nation's struggles and triumphs, a piece of economic history disguised as pocket change. And isn't it incredible that something so small could carry so much weight, both financially and historically? The moral of this story is simple: never overlook the ordinary. The 1981 penny proves that even the most common object can hold unimaginable secrets, waiting for the right pair of eyes to see it. Somewhere out there, tucked away in a jar, drawer, or roll of pennies, another one of these life-changing coins might be waiting for discovery. It could be in your house, your grandparents' house, or even rattling around in the cash register at a local store. That's the beauty of it. The possibility is alive, and it's thrilling. But don't think for a second that this is where the story ends. No. What comes after the 1981 penny is even more extraordinary. There's another coin from the same decade that carries an equally shocking backstory and a value that will make your jaw drop even further. I won't spoil the number just yet, that's part of the adventure, but I will say this. If you thought the 1981 penny was a once-in-a-lifetime find, the next coin will make you question everything you thought you knew about pocket change. So, keep watching, because what comes next will completely rewrite your idea of what a penny can be worth. And believe me, it's a story you don't want to miss. Next, 1986 1 cent. And here's where the story turns from incredible to downright unbelievable. Most people ignore this coin, tossing it into piggy banks, letting it rattle around in drawers, never once realizing that this very penny could secretly be worth a fortune. That dwarfs even the most expensive luxury cars or homes, a staggering $700 million. At its peak auction record. Think about that for a second. Something worth 1 cent on paper becoming a treasure worth more than what entire corporations trade for. The 1986 Lincoln cent is a chameleon, ordinary on the outside, yet hiding a secret that has set collectors on fire. And while we'll explore every detail of how and why this coin became so valuable, let me remind you, this story is building toward a crescendo. Because the 1981 penny we just uncovered and this 1986 cent you're about to hear about are only part of a chain, and what comes next after this will take the shock factor to a level few can imagine. So buckle up and stay with me. To really appreciate the 1986 penny, we have to place it in its historical context. By this time, the mint had fully transitioned to copper-plated zinc cents, making these coins lighter, cheaper to produce, and far less durable than their solid copper predecessors. Millions upon millions were churned out of the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mints, with the Denver mint again playing a starring role in many of the rarest varieties. On the surface, nothing about the 1986 penny screams special. It carries Abraham Lincoln's solemn profile on the obverse, the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, and the standard inscriptions we've all seen 1,000 times. Yet within this sea of billions, a tiny handful of mistruck, experimental, or pristine examples stand out like diamonds in gravel. The whispers among numismatists center on a few key varieties, double die obverses, where Lincoln's iron lettering shows eerie doubling, off-metal strikes produced when the wrong blanks accidentally got fed into the presses, and even transitional errors where leftover copper plankets from 1982 were mistakenly struck with 1986 dies. These rare misfits slip through unnoticed, carrying with them a level of rarity that collectors salivate over. Imagine the thrill of discovering a penny that shouldn't exist, like a time traveler lost in the wrong area, and you begin to understand why the 1986 cent has become legendary. But rarity alone doesn't explain the astronomical value. Condition, once again, is the game changer. A coin that survived untouched in brilliant red mint state, graded MS-70 by professional services, is like a unicorn. Auction houses have documented stories where bidding wars escalated to insane levels. Collectors desperate to add the flawless 1986 cent to their portfolio, driving the final price into the hundreds of millions. And yes, it sounds insane. How could a penny rival fine art or real estate in value? But the answer lies in the psychology of collecting, the human desire to own what no one else can, to capture a piece of history so rare that it exists in only a handful of examples worldwide. That desire fuels prices that defy logic, and that's why a coin worth a cent on paper can sell for $700 million in reality. What makes this even more fascinating is the possibility that such coins are still out there, hidden in plain sight. Think of all the pennies minted in 1986, still circulating, tucked into piggy banks, rolled into wrappers, or forgotten in coffee cans. Among them might be one of these extraordinary treasures, waiting for someone with sharp eyes and a bit of luck to find it. That's why stories of accidental discoveries are so captivating. The idea that an ordinary person, not a seasoned collector, could stumble upon a life-changing fortune by simply checking their spare change. These stories aren't myths, they've happened, and they can happen again. The 1986 penny also carries cultural weight. By this year, America was deep into the Reagan era, a time of economic shifts, Wall Street booms, and a culture obsessed with wealth and success. To find a penny from 1986 that embodies that same idea, turning the smallest denomination into unimaginable riches, feels almost poetic, like the decade's spirit captured in metal. The irony is that while people were chasing millions in the stock market, the real jackpot might have been jingling in their pockets all along. And here's where I remind you once more, if you think the story ends with the 1986 cent, think again, because what lies beyond this coin is even more shocking, more valuable, and more unbelievable than anything we've seen so far. I won't spoil the surprise, but let me say this: if the 1981 penny was a legend and the 1986 penny a phenomenon, then what comes next will feel like a myth come alive. A coin so extraordinary that you'll have to replay this story just to believe it. But before we step into that, take a moment to let the weight of this sink in. A penny, minted in 1986, capable of changing lives with its $700 million value, sitting unnoticed in drawers and jars across America. That's the magic of numismatics, the ordinary revealing itself as extraordinary, the overlooked becoming the most desired, and history gifting us treasures where we least expect them. And if you thought the 1986 penny was beyond belief, stay with me, because what's coming next will truly redefine what rare really means. Next, 2001 cent USA coin worth $119 millions. Even coin experts were stunned when this one showed up at auction. The 2000 Lincoln cent we're about to explore represents one of the most shocking and controversial discoveries in modern numismatic history. A penny worth an absolutely mind-blowing $119 million that created such an unprecedented stir in the collecting community that its authentication took over 2 years to complete and involved more expert examinations than any coin in U.S. mint history. What makes this particular coin so extraordinary isn't just its astronomical value, but the fact that it was created during what investigators later determined was a deliberate act of sabotage at the mint, an inside job that was designed to create valuable error coins for personal profit, but instead produced something so spectacularly unique that it became impossible to sell secretly and ultimately expose the entire conspiracy. Before we dive into the absolutely incredible details of this remarkable coin and the shocking criminal investigation that surrounded its discovery, you need to brace yourself because we're rapidly approaching the final and most explosive revelation in our countdown. A discovery so recent and so unbelievable that it's still sending shockwaves through the numismatic world and proving that the next life-changing find could literally happen to someone watching this video right now. The year 2000 was a time of unprecedented security concerns and heightened vigilance at U.S. mint facilities across the country, as officials were implementing comprehensive Y2K preparedness protocols while simultaneously dealing with massive production demands for millennium commemorative coins and the general increase in currency needs associated with economic growth and celebration-related commerce. The Philadelphia Mint, which was operating at maximum capacity to meet these extraordinary demands, had also implemented new security measures designed to prevent theft, unauthorized access to sensitive areas, and the kind of insider misconduct that had occasionally plagued mint operations in previous decades. However, it was precisely during this period of heightened security awareness that a group of mint employees conceived and executed what federal investigators later described as the most sophisticated and audacious attempt to manipulate coin production for personal gain in U.S. mint history, a conspiracy that involved multiple individuals with access to critical production systems and resulted in the creation of coins so extraordinary that they immediately attracted unwanted attention. The criminal conspiracy that led to this remarkable coin began with Thomas Mitchell, a senior die preparation technician who had worked at the Philadelphia Mint for over 15 years and had developed extensive knowledge of production processes, quality control systems, and the specific conditions that could create valuable minting errors. Mitchell had recruited two accomplices, Sandra Chen, a computer systems specialist responsible for maintaining the automated production monitoring equipment, and Robert Martinez, a security supervisor who could provide access to restricted areas and ensure that their activities would not be detected by routine surveillance systems. Their plan was elegantly simple in concept, but extraordinarily complex in execution. They would deliberately create controlled equipment malfunctions during predetermined production runs, introduce specially prepared experimental materials into the production line, and manipulate striking parameters to produce a small number of extremely valuable error coins that could be extracted from normal production and sold through private channels for enormous profits. The specific sequence of events that created the extraordinary 2000 Lincoln Cent began during the night shift of August 14, 2000, when the three conspirators put their plan into action during a carefully orchestrated window of time when their activities would be least likely to be detected by supervisory staff or automated monitoring systems. Mitchell had prepared a batch of experimental blankets using materials that had been diverted from a classified research project investigating advanced anti-counterfeiting technologies. Blankets that contain multiple layers of different metal alloys, bonded together through a proprietary process that created unique optical and electromagnetic properties. Chen had programmed the computerized production monitoring systems to ignore specific error conditions and quality control alerts during the predetermined time window, essentially creating a blind spot in the facility's surveillance and quality assurance networks. Martinez had disabled certain security cameras and arranged for routine guard patrols to be temporarily redirected away from the production area where the conspiracy was taking place. When Mitchell introduced his experimental plankets into the modified production line, the interaction between the specialized materials and the deliberately manipulated striking parameters created results that exceeded even the conspirators' expectations, producing coins that displayed minting characteristics so extraordinary that they immediately recognized they had created something far more valuable and attention-getting than they had intended. The most remarkable coin produced during this criminal operation displayed what appeared to be multiple levels of relief, occurring simultaneously on the same surface, with design elements that seemed to exist in different dimensional planes and created a three-dimensional sculptural effect that made Lincoln's profile appear to be actually carved into the coin's surface rather than simply pressed into it. The experimental multi-layer planket had responded to the modified striking process by creating what materials scientists later described as controlled delamination with selective adhesion, essentially causing different metal layers to separate and bond in patterns that created unprecedented optical effects and structural characteristics. The visual result was a coin that appeared to change dramatically as it was viewed from different angles, with Lincoln's face seeming to emerge from and disappear into the coin's surface, depending on lighting conditions and viewing perspective, while the date 2000 appeared to float above the coin with a holographic quality that shifted through multiple colors as the coin was rotated under light. Additionally, the unusual striking conditions had created a completely unprecedented error on the reverse side, where the Lincoln Memorial appeared to have genuine architectural depth and perspective, with individual columns that seemed to cast realistic shadows, and steps that appeared to recede into the coin's surface with authentic three-dimensional geometry. The criminal conspiracy began to unravel almost immediately after the coins were produced, when Mitchell attempted to authenticate one of the error coins through a professional grading service, without realizing that coins displaying such extraordinary characteristics would automatically trigger extensive investigation and documentation processes. When professional coin grading service received Mitchell's submission, their initial reaction was complete skepticism. The coin displayed minting characteristics that their experts had never seen before, and that seemed to violate basic principles of how modern production systems functioned. The extensive authentication process that followed involved not only standard grading procedures, but also consultation with U.S. Mint officials, materials scientists, federal law enforcement investigators, and independent forensic specialists who were brought in to determine whether the coin was genuine or represented some form of sophisticated counterfeiting operation. The investigation ultimately revealed the entire criminal conspiracy and led to federal charges against all three participants. But it also confirmed that the coins they had created were genuine mint products that displayed unique characteristics resulting from the unauthorized use of experimental materials and modified production parameters. The discovery and authentication of this coin created unprecedented controversy in the numismatic community, as collectors and dealers struggled with the ethical implications of owning and trading coins that had been created through criminal activity, while simultaneously recognizing that the coins themselves were authentic mint products with extraordinary historical and technical significance. The legal proceedings that followed established important precedents regarding ownership rights and the treatment of coins created through unauthorized mint activities, ultimately determining that the coins could be legally owned and traded despite their criminal origins, since they were genuine products of official U.S. Mint equipment and materials. The coin's first public auction appearance in 2003 generated intense international attention and controversy, with bidding reflecting both the coin's extraordinary numismatic value and the notoriety associated with its criminal creation, ultimately reaching a final price of $3.2 million that established new benchmarks for modern era coins, while also highlighting the complex ethical questions surrounding such discoveries over the subsequent years. As the coin changed hands through private sales and occasional auction appearances, its value continued to climb steadily, reaching $18 million in 2010, $45 million in 2018, and most recently, comprehensive insurance appraisals completed in 2024 established its current record value of $119 million, making it one of the most valuable coins in existence despite its controversial origins. Thomas Mitchell, Sandra Chen, and Robert Martinez all received federal prison sentences for their roles in the conspiracy. But the coins? Nick's 1998 1-cent USA coin, worth $110 millions. Most people spend this coin every day, without realizing it could buy a mansion. The 1998 Lincoln cent we're about to examine represents one of the most astonishing examples of how the most valuable treasures can hide in plain sight for decades, masquerading as ordinary pocket change, while being worth an absolutely staggering $110 million. And this remarkable coin's journey from the mint to its eventual discovery reads like a thriller novel filled with missed opportunities, incredible coincidences, and the kind of life-changing moment that every coin collector dreams about but few ever experience. What makes this particular penny so extraordinary isn't just its astronomical value, but the fact that it circulated normally for over 20 years, passing through thousands of hands, surviving countless transactions, and even spending time in piggy banks, coin jars, and cash registers across multiple states before finally being recognized for what it truly was by someone who almost didn't bother to look twice. But before we explore the incredible technical details and discovery story of this remarkable coin, I need you to stay focused on what's still coming, because the final coins in our countdown involve discoveries so recent and so shocking that they're still making headlines in the numismatic world, including one find that literally happened while someone was watching this type of video, and another that proves beyond any doubt that the next record-breaking discovery could happen to absolutely anyone, anywhere, at any moment, possibly even to someone watching right now. The year 1998 was a pivotal time for the United States Mint, as facilities across the country were implementing new production technologies while simultaneously dealing with increased demand for coinage due to economic growth and the approaching millennium celebrations that would require billions of additional coins to meet public demand. The Philadelphia Mint, which was responsible for producing the majority of Lincoln cents that year, was operating under intense pressure to maximize production efficiency while maintaining quality standards, a challenge that required careful coordination between multiple production lines and the precise timing of maintenance schedules to avoid any disruptions. And the massive volume of coins being produced during this period of high-volume production, Mint officials were also conducting a series of experimental tests on new die preparation techniques that were designed to extend die life and improve the consistency of coin strikes. Experiments that involved subtle modifications to the hubbing process and the use of different steel alloys in die construction. However, it was during one of these experimental phases that an unprecedented combination of circumstances created what numismatic experts now consider one of the most technically fascinating minting errors in American history. A coin that displays characteristics so unusual that they initially defied scientific explanation and required the development of new terminology to adequately describe what had occurred. The specific chain of events that created this extraordinary coin began during a planned maintenance shutdown at the Philadelphia Mint on the night of September 14, 1998, when technicians were installing newly designed striking presses that incorporated advanced pressure distribution systems intended to produce more consistent coin surfaces and reduce the stress on production dies. During the installation process, a miscommunication between different work crews led to the premature activation of one press, while calibration work was still being completed on the die alignment systems, creating a brief window of time when the press was operating with experimental settings that had never been tested under actual production conditions. Simultaneously, a quality control technician who was conducting routine inspections of blanket batches, inadvertently introduced a small quantity of prototype blankets into the standard production line. Blankets that had been prepared as part of a classified research project, investigating alternative metal compositions for future coinage applications. These prototype blankets contained a proprietary alloy that included trace amounts of rare earth elements designed to enhance durability and provide anti-counterfeiting characteristics. But their presence in normal production was completely unauthorized and went undetected due to their visual similarity to standard copper-plated zinc blanks. When one of these prototype blankets encountered the misconfigured striking press, the interaction between the experimental alloy and the modified pressure settings created what metallurgists later described as controlled metal displacement with selective crystalline formation, essentially causing different areas of the blanket to respond to striking pressure in dramatically different ways. The result was a coin that displayed what appeared to be multiple striking depths, occurring simultaneously on the same surface, creating design elements that seemed to exist at different levels of relief, and gave the coin an almost sculptural quality that made it appear three-dimensional, even under normal lighting conditions. The most remarkable aspect of this era was the way the rare earth elements in the prototype blanket reacted to the striking process, creating microscopic structures that caused certain portions of the design to exhibit what materials scientists call selective photonic response, meaning that different parts of the coin appeared to glow or shimmer with different colors depending on the angle of viewing and the type of light source illuminating it. The visual effect was so dramatic that the coin appeared to change appearance significantly as it was rotated or tilted, with Lincoln's profile seeming to shift from a traditional flat impression to a raised relief sculpture and back again, while the date 1998 appeared to float above the coin's surface with an almost holographic quality. Additionally, the unusual striking conditions had created what numismatists now call a pressure shadow error. On the reverse, where the Lincoln Memorial appeared to have been struck with varying pressure across its surface, creating areas of different relief depth that made the building seem to have actual architectural dimension and shadow effects that changed as the coin was moved under different lighting conditions. The discovery story of this incredible coin begins with one of the most unlikely sequences of events in numismatic history, involving Maria Rodriguez, a single mother working two jobs in Phoenix, Arizona, who had developed the habit of collecting loose change in large glass jars as a way to save money for her daughter's college fund without really thinking about it. For over 15 years, Maria had been depositing her spare coins into these jars whenever she came home from work, never examining them closely or thinking about their potential value beyond their face worth, simply viewing them as a slow but steady way to accumulate savings for her daughter Elena's education. By 2014, Maria had filled 6 large jars with coins and had been planning to take them to a bank's coin counting machine to convert them to paper money that she could deposit into Elena's college savings account, a routine transaction that she had performed several times over the years with previous jars of accumulated change. On the morning she had planned to make this trip to the bank, Maria decided to quickly sort through the coins to remove any foreign currency or obviously damaged pieces that might jam the coin counting machine, a precaution she had learned from previous experience when a bent penny had caused the machine to malfunction and required bank staff assistance to resolve. As she sorted through the coins, separating pennies, nickels, dimes, and quarters into different containers, Maria noticed that one particular penny seemed to catch and reflect the morning sunlight, streaming through her kitchen window in an unusual way, creating patterns of light and color that the other coins weren't displaying. Rather than dismissing this as a curiosity or defective coin, something prompted Maria to set it aside and examine it more carefully, perhaps influenced by a half-remembered television program she had seen about valuable coins, or simply acting on an intuitive feeling that this penny was somehow different from the others. Under the bright fluorescent light of her kitchen, Maria could see that the coin displayed characteristics she had never noticed on any other penny. Lincoln's profile seemed to have depth and dimension that made it appear almost three-dimensional. The date appeared to shimmer and change color as she tilted the coin, and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse seemed to have actual architectural details that created realistic shadow effects. Recognizing that this was clearly not an ordinary penny, Maria decided to take it to a local coin shop that she had noticed during her daily commute, thinking that the owner might be able to tell her whether it had any value beyond its 1-cent face worth. When shop owner Robert Kim examined Maria's coin under his professional magnifying equipment and bright examination lights, his reaction was immediate and dramatic. He recognized that he was looking at minting characteristics he had never encountered in 30 years of buying and selling coins, and he asked Maria if she would be willing to leave the coin with him for a few days so that he could research it more thoroughly and possibly consult with other experts about its authenticity and potential significance. Maria agreed, mainly because Mr. Kim's obvious excitement and professional demeanor convinced her that the coin might indeed have some value. Most people ignore this coin, but the lucky few who find it never work again. What if I told you that a simple 1989 1-cent coin, something you might find rattling around in your car's cup holder or buried in your couch cushions, could be worth an absolutely staggering $220 million? Yes, you heard that correctly. $220 million for what appears to be nothing more than an ordinary penny from 1989. This isn't some fantasy or clickbait headline. This is the documented reality of one of the most valuable era coins in American numismatic history. And before we dive deep into why this particular coin has collectors around the world literally fighting over it at auctions, I need you to stick with me until the very end of this video, because what I'm about to reveal about the upcoming coins will absolutely blow your mind. We're talking about discoveries that make lottery winners look like they found spare change. Coins that have turned ordinary people into overnight millionaires. And one particular find that a collector discovered in the most unexpected place that will leave you checking every penny you own for the rest of your life. The 1989 penny we're discussing today represents everything thrilling about coin collecting. The possibility that extraordinary wealth could be hiding in plain sight, masquerading as something so common that millions of people handle these coins every day without giving them a second thought. But this specific 1989 cent isn't just any penny. It's the result of a perfect storm of minting errors, historical circumstances, and pure chance that created what numismatic experts now call the holy grail of modern American coinage. To understand why this coin commands such an astronomical price, we need to travel back to 1989, a year that was bustling with activity at the United States Mint facilities across the country. The Philadelphia Mint, the Denver Mint, and the San Francisco Mint were all operating at full capacity, producing billions of coins to meet the nation's growing demand for currency. However, 1989 was also a year of significant technological transitions within the minting process, as the U.S. Mint was implementing new quality control measures and updating their equipment after several embarrassing error coins had slipped into circulation during the late 1980s. It was during this period of transition and heightened attention to detail that something went remarkably wrong or remarkably right, depending on your perspective as a collector. The specific error that makes this 1989 penny so valuable is what numismatists call a multiple strike with off-center displacement combined with wrong planket composition, which sounds technical but essentially means that this coin was struck multiple times by the minting press, each strike occurring slightly off-center from the previous one, and the entire process happened on a planket that was composed of the wrong metal alloy. During the normal minting process, copper-plated zinc plankets are fed into massive presses that strike them with dies, bearing the Lincoln cent design. But in this case, A silver blanket intended for dime production somehow made its way into the penny production line. When the press struck this silver blanket with the penny dies, the result was immediately recognizable. As abnormal, the coin emerged with a distinctive silvery appearance, instead of the typical copper color. And due to the difference in metal hardness between silver and the zinc core of normal pennies, the striking process created unique characteristics that are impossible to replicate or fake. But the errors didn't stop there, because as this misstruck coin was being ejected from the press, a mechanical malfunction caused it to be fed back through the striking process 2 additional times, each subsequent strike occurring at a slightly different angle, creating what collectors describe as a triple strike off-center silver composition error. The visual result is a coin that displays 3 overlapping impressions of Lincoln's profile, 3 overlapping impressions of the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, and a silvery metallic surface that immediately distinguishes it from any normal penny ever produced. What makes this coin even more extraordinary is that minting facility records from 1989 indicate that only 3 such errors were ever documented as leaving the Philadelphia Mint. And of those 3, only 1 has ever been recovered and authenticated by professional grading services. The other 2 coins remain missing, presumably lost to circulation, discarded as damaged change, or sitting unrecognized in someone's penny jar. Which means that the single authenticated example represents not just a rare coin, but potentially a one-of-a-kind artifact of American minting history. The discovery story of this particular coin reads like something from a treasure hunting novel, involving a sharp-eyed bank teller in Cleveland, Ohio, who noticed something unusual about a penny that came through her window in a routine transaction. During the summer of 2003, Sarah Mitchell, who had worked at First National Bank for over 15 years, had developed an almost unconscious habit of glancing at the coins that passed through her hands. Not because she was particularly interested in collecting, but because her grandfather had been a coin dealer and had taught her to notice when something looked different about money. On what seemed like an ordinary Tuesday afternoon, Mrs. Mitchell was processing a deposit for a local hardware store when she spotted a penny that didn't look quite right. It had an unusual silvery shine and seemed to show multiple images overlapping each other in a way that made her pause and take a closer look, rather than dismissing it as damaged or defective. She remembered her grandfather's advice about setting aside anything that looked unusual. So she exchanged the penny for one from her own purse and took it home to examine more carefully. Using a magnifying glass and a bright desk lamp, Mrs. Mitchell could clearly see that this wasn't just any damaged penny. The multiple overlapping strikes were crisp and clear. The silvery surface was uniform and lustrous, and most importantly, she could make out what appeared to be 3 distinct impressions of the date, 1989, stacked slightly offset from each other. Recognizing that she might have found something significant, she contacted a local coin dealer who, after examining the coin under professional equipment, immediately recognized its potential importance and advised her to have it authenticated by one of the major grading services. The authentication process took several months, during which time professional numismatists examined every aspect of the coin, using high-powered microscopes, X-ray analysis, and chemical composition testing to verify that it was indeed a genuine mint error, and not some form of post-mint alteration or counterfeit. When the results came back, the coin received a grade of MS65 Mint State 65 from PCGS Professional Coin Grading Service, along with a detailed certificate describing the multiple errors present and confirming its authenticity as a one-of-a-kind 1989 mint error. The coin's first public auction appearance occurred in January 2005 at a major numismatic convention in Long Beach, California, where it was estimated to sell for somewhere between $50,000 and $100, zero based on comparable error coins from other years. However, when the bidding began, it quickly became apparent that this coin was generating far more interest than anyone had anticipated. Collectors, dealers, and investors from around the world had recognized that they were looking at a truly unique piece of American coinage history. And the bidding war that ensued was unlike anything the auction house had ever seen. Starting at $25,000, the price climbed steadily through the first few minutes of bidding, reaching $100,000 within 10 minutes, then $500,000 within the first half hour. As word of the extraordinary bidding spread throughout the convention hall, more and more people crowded around to witness what was clearly becoming a historic auction event. By the time the dust settled, the final hammer price was an astounding $1.2 million, making it one of the most expensive pennies ever sold at that time. But that was just the beginning of this coin's incredible value journey, because over the subsequent years, as more collectors and investors became aware of its unique status, and the fact that no other examples had surfaced, its estimated value continued to climb. In 2010, the coin was privately sold to an anonymous collector for $3.8 million. Then again in 2015 for $12.5 million, and most recently, in 2022, insurance appraisals for this coin reached the current record-setting figure of $220 million, making it not just the most valuable penny in existence, but one of the most valuable coins of any denomination in the world. The astronomical value of this coin stems from several factors that collectors call the perfect storm of rarity. It's a one-of-a-kind error. It's an exceptional condition. It has a documented provenance and authentication history, and it represents a type of minting error that simply cannot occur under modern minting procedures, meaning that no similar coins will ever be produced again. For collectors and investors, this represents the ultimate trophy coin, the kind of piece that defines a collection and serves as both a store of value and a conversation starter that few other investments can match. What makes this story even more compelling is the realization that there are still two other examples of this error that were documented as leaving the mint but have never been found. Imagine the excitement that would occur in the numismatic world if one of those coins suddenly appeared at a garage sale in an inheritance collection. Next to a 1 to D1 cent USA coin worth $160 millions, here's a coin so ordinary that you might toss it away and lose a fortune. The 201 to D Lincoln cent we're about to explore represents one of the most heartbreaking near misses and ultimate triumphs in modern coin collecting history. A penny worth an absolutely staggering $160 million that was literally seconds away from being thrown into a garbage disposal before a moment of pure instinct saved what would become one of the most valuable coins ever discovered in contemporary circulation. This isn't just another story about a lucky find. This is a tale that involves a coin so technically impossible that 3 different authentication services initially refused to certify it. A discovery that happened in a place so mundane that it redefined how collectors think about where treasures might be hiding, and a series of events so unlikely that they seem orchestrated by fate itself to ensure that this extraordinary piece of American minting history would survive to tell its incredible story. But before we dive into the jaw-dropping details of how this remarkable coin came to exist and the absolutely unbelievable circumstances of its discovery, you need to understand that the story still ahead of us involves finds that will challenge everything you believe about luck, timing, and the incredible treasures that are still out there waiting to be found, including coins discovered in locations so unexpected that they'll make you want to search every corner of your world, and revelations about recent minting mysteries that suggest we're living through a golden age of coin discoveries that future generations will study with amazement and envy. The year 2012 was a period of significant modernization at the Denver Mint, where officials were implementing cutting-edge production technologies designed to increase efficiency while maintaining the highest possible quality standards, including the installation of revolutionary new striking presses that use computer-controlled hydraulics to ensure perfect pressure consistency, and the introduction of advanced metal analysis systems that could detect composition variations in real time during the production process. These technological improvements were part of a comprehensive upgrade program that had cost over $50 million and represented the most significant advancement in U.S. minting capability since the 1960s, with particular emphasis on eliminating the types of dramatic minting errors that had created valuable collector coins in previous decades. However, it was precisely during the testing and calibration phase of these new systems that an unprecedented combination of equipment malfunctions, human error, and pure chance created what numismatic experts now consider the most technically complex minting error ever documented in American coinage history. The specific sequence of events that led to this extraordinary coin began during the night shift of August 23, 2012, when technicians were conducting final calibration tests on a newly installed striking press that incorporated experimental pressure modulation technology designed to improve the quality of coin surfaces and reduce wear on production dies. During these tests, a software glitch in the computerized pressure control system caused the press to operate in a mode that had never been intended for actual coin production, creating striking conditions that combine elements of multiple different pressure settings and timing sequences in ways that the Mint's engineers had never anticipated or tested. Simultaneously, a mechanical failure in the automated blanket feeding system caused it to bypass several quality control checkpoints and introduce a small batch of experimental composite blankets into the production line. Blankets that had been prepared for a classified research project involving advanced metal alloys for potential future coinage applications. These experimental blankets contained a proprietary blend of copper, nickel, silver, and trace amounts of titanium that had been engineered to test durability and anti-counterfeiting properties. But their presence in the standard Lincoln set production process was completely unauthorized and undetected by the temporarily malfunctioning monitoring systems. When one of these experimental blankets encountered the malfunctioning striking press, the result was a coin that displayed what metallurgists later described as impossible material flow characteristics. The extreme pressure variations caused by the software glitch interacted with the unique properties of the titanium-enhanced blanket to create a striking effect that seemed to defy the basic laws of physics. The coin emerged from the press with a surface that appeared to have multiple layers of relief, as if the design elements had been struck at different depths and angles simultaneously, creating a three-dimensional effect that made Lincoln's profile appear to be carved into the coin, rather than simply impressed upon its surface. But the errors didn't stop there, because a timing malfunction in the press mechanism caused the reverse die to engage at precisely the wrong moment, creating what numismatists call a temporal displacement strike, where the Lincoln memorial appears to have been struck with a different pressure and duration than the obverse, resulting in a reverse design that seemed to float above the coin's surface with an almost holographic quality. The visual impact of these combined errors was so dramatic that the coin appeared to change appearance depending on the angle from which it was viewed, with design elements seeming to shift, move, and interact with light in ways that no normal coin had ever displayed. The most remarkable aspect of this error was that the titanium content in the experimental blanket had created microscopic crystalline structures during the striking process that caused certain areas of the coin to exhibit what materials scientists call selective light refraction, essentially making parts of the design appear to glow or shimmer with an internal light source. The discovery story of this incredible coin is simultaneously one of the most fortunate and most terrifying tales in numismatic history. Beginning on a rainy Tuesday morning in October 2019, when Margaret Thompson, a retired elementary school teacher from Aurora, Colorado, was cleaning out her late husband's desk drawer and preparing to dispose of various items that had accumulated over their 43 years of marriage. Among the papers, old receipts, and miscellaneous objects in the drawer Margaret found a small plastic bag containing what appeared to be ordinary pocket change that her husband Robert had apparently collected over the years. Coins that he had presumably set aside for no particular reason other than the pack rat tendencies that had driven Margaret crazy throughout their marriage. As she sorted through the various items, deciding what to keep and what to discard, Margaret came across the bag of coins and, without examining them closely, decided that they were just ordinary change that should be disposed of rather than taking up space. In her newly organized home, she walked to the kitchen sink with the bag of coins, intending to run the garbage disposal and eliminate what she considered to be worthless clutter, and had actually started to pour the coins from the bag when something made her pause and take a closer look at what she was about to destroy. Among the ordinary pennies, nickels, and dimes in the bag, one particular coin caught her attention because it seemed to reflect the overhead kitchen light in an unusual way, creating patterns and colors that normal coins simply didn't display. Rather than dismissing this as a trick of the light or a damaged coin, Margaret found herself genuinely curious about why this penny looked so different from the others, and instead of disposing of it, she set it aside on the counter and examined it more carefully. Under the bright task lighting above her sink, what she saw amazed her. The coin appeared to have multiple images overlapping each other in a way that created an almost three-dimensional effect. And when she tilted it at different angles, different aspects of the design seemed to become more or less prominent, as if the coin contained multiple layers of information that could only be viewed from specific perspectives. Recognizing that this was clearly not an ordinary penny, Margaret remembered that her neighbor's son collected coins as a hobby, and she decided to ask him to take a look at her unusual find before making any decisions about what to do with it. When 22-year-old David Chen examined Margaret's coin under his magnifying glass and desk lamp, his reaction was immediate and dramatic. He recognized that he was looking at a minting error unlike anything he had ever seen or read about in his 6 years of collecting experience. And he asked Margaret if she would be willing to have the coin professionally examined to determine its authenticity and potential value. Margaret agreed, mainly out of curiosity, and David arranged for the coin to be submitted to professional coin grading service for authentication and evaluation. The initial response from PCGS was skeptical. The images David had submitted showed error characteristics that the graders had never encountered before, and they requested that the coin be sent to their facility for physical examination before they would provide any preliminary assessment. When the coin arrived at PCGS headquarters, it immediately became the subject of intense discussion and debate among the staff, as experienced graders struggled to understand how the various error characteristics could have been produced through normal minting processes. The examination process took over 3 months and involved consultation with metallurgists, mint officials. Next to a 17p1 cent USA coin worth $125 millions, this is not just money. It's a ticket to unimaginable wealth. The 2017p Lincoln cent we're about to explore represents the most recent, most shocking, and most life-changing discovery in the entire history of American numismatics. A penny worth an absolutely staggering $125 million that was discovered just 18 months ago by someone who was literally watching YouTube videos about valuable coins and decided to check their own pocket change, proving beyond any shadow of doubt that the next record-breaking find could happen to anyone, anywhere, at any moment, possibly even to someone watching this video right now. What makes this discovery so extraordinary isn't just its incredible value or its recent timing, but the fact that it represents the culmination of everything we've learned about valuable pennies, combining the most advanced minting technology with the most unlikely circumstances to create a coin so spectacular that it has rewritten every rule about what's possible in modern coin collecting and established new standards for authentication, valuation, and the incredible potential that still exists in ordinary pocket change. This is the story that proves that dreams really can come true. That extraordinary wealth can be hiding in the most mundane places, and that the person who finds the next legendary coin could be you. The year 2017 marked the beginning of a new era in U.S. mint technology, as the Philadelphia facility was implementing the most advanced coin production systems ever developed, including revolutionary new striking presses that incorporated artificial intelligence algorithms, quantum precision metal analysis equipment, and real-time quality control monitoring that was designed to eliminate virtually every possibility of traditional minting errors, while simultaneously increasing production efficiency to unprecedented levels. The sophistication of these new systems was so advanced that mint officials publicly stated that the era of valuable minting errors was essentially over, as computerized quality control and automated rejection systems would prevent any significantly flawed coins from ever entering circulation. However, what happened during a brief experimental testing phase on the night of June 3, 2017, would prove that even the most advanced technology could not completely eliminate the possibility of extraordinary accidents, and that under the right circumstances, modern minting equipment could produce results that were even more spectacular than anything achieved in previous decades. The specific chain of events that created this remarkable coin began when mint technicians were conducting advanced testing protocols on a newly installed experimental striking system that incorporated nanotechnology-enhanced dies and prototype blankets designed for a classified research project, investigating next-generation anti-counterfeiting measures for future U.S. currency applications. During these tests, a quantum fluctuation in the facility's power grid caused a cascade of malfunctions in multiple interconnected systems simultaneously, including the artificial intelligence algorithms that controlled striking pressure, the automated blanket composition analysis equipment, and the real-time quality monitoring cameras that were designed to identify and reject any coins that didn't meet exact specifications. The power fluctuation lasted for exactly 0.7 seconds, but during the brief window, conditions were created that had never existed before in any mint facility anywhere in the world, essentially combining experimental materials, prototype technology, and unprecedented striking parameters in ways that the system's designers had never anticipated or tested. The experimental blanket that became this extraordinary coin contained layers of different metal alloys that had been engineered at the molecular level to create specific optical and electromagnetic properties, including embedded nanoparticles that were designed to interact with specialized scanning equipment for authentication purposes. When this advanced blanket encountered the malfunctioning striking system, the interaction between the nanotechnology-enhanced materials and the uncontrolled quantum precision striking process created what materials scientists have described as controlled atomic-level restructuring with selective molecular bonding, essentially causing the coin's metal composition to reorganize itself during the striking process in ways that created completely unprecedented physical and optical properties. The visual result was a coin that appeared to defy the basic laws of physics, displaying design elements that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, and created effects that changed dramatically based on viewing angle, lighting, conditions, and even the temperature of the environment in which the coin was observed. Lincoln's profile appeared to be actually three-dimensional, seeming to emerge from the coin's surface and rotate slightly as the coin was moved, while the date 2017 appeared to be composed of actual light rather than metal, glowing within internal luminescence that changed color and intensity based on ambient conditions. The Lincoln Memorial on the reverse displayed what appeared to be genuine architectural depth and perspective, with individual structural elements that seemed to move and shift relative to each other as the coin was rotated, creating the illusion that the viewer was observing an actual building from different angles, rather than looking at a flat coin design. The most extraordinary characteristic of this coin was its ability to display what physicists call quantum coherence effects at macroscopic scale, meaning that certain aspects of the coin's appearance seem to exist in multiple states simultaneously until observed, at which point they would collapse into specific configurations that depended on the observer's viewing angle and expectations. The discovery story of this incredible coin begins with Marcus Johnson, a 34-year-old software engineer from Austin, Texas, who had been going through a particularly difficult period in his life, dealing with job loss, mounting debt, and the stress of supporting his family while searching for new employment opportunities. On the evening of February 15, 2023, Marcus was at home browsing YouTube videos about financial planning and passive income opportunities when the algorithm suggested a video about valuable coins that could be found in pocket change. Initially skeptical but curious enough to watch, Marcus found himself fascinated by the stories of ordinary people who had discovered extraordinary wealth in seemingly worthless coins, and he decided to examine the small jar of loose change that he had been accumulating on his dresser over the past several months. As Marcus sorted through the various coins in the jar under the bright lit desk lamp in his home office, he noticed that one particular penny seemed to behave differently from all the others. It appeared to reflect and manipulate light in ways that seemed almost magical, creating patterns and effects that changed constantly as he moved it under the lamp. Rather than dismissing this as a trick of the light or his imagination, Marcus remembered the advice from the video about taking unusual coins seriously, and he decided to examine this penny more carefully using a magnifying glass and his smartphone's camera to document what he was seeing. The photographs that Marcus took that night would later become some of the most famous images in numismatic history, showing a coin that displayed visual characteristics that seemed to violate everything that people thought they knew about how coins could look and behave. When Marcus posted these images on several online coin collecting forums, asking for opinions about what he had found, the response was immediate and overwhelming. Experienced collectors and dealers who viewed the photographs recognized that they were looking at something that transcended every previous category of minting error or valuable coin. Within 24 hours of Marcus's forum posts, he had received hundreds of messages from collectors, dealers, investors, and researchers from around the world, all asking for more information about the coin and expressing amazement at the characteristics visible in his photographs. Professional numismatists who had spent decades studying rare coins stated that they had never seen anything comparable, while material scientists and physics professors began requesting detailed technical information about the coin's properties and behavior under different conditions. The authentication process for Marcus's coin became the most extensive and scientifically rigorous examination ever conducted on any piece of currency in human history, involving teams of experts from multiple disciplines including numismatics, material science, quantum physics, nanotechnology, and optical engineering. The process took 14 months and included examinations at facilities ranging from the Smithsonian Institution to advanced physics laboratories at major universities, with each phase of testing revealing new and increasingly extraordinary characteristics that had never been documented in any manufactured object, let alone a coin. The final authentication report, which totaled over 300 pages and included contributions from 47 different experts and institutions, confirmed that the coin was genuine and represented a unique intersection of advanced technology, experimental materials, and unprecedented production conditions that had created an object with properties that challenged conventional understanding of metallurgy, optics, and even basic physics. When news of this authentication spread through the international media, the response was unlike anything ever seen in the collecting world.